This is Jim McKenzie, Interim Minister at First Congregational Church in Port Washington, Wisconsin, here for another Gap Chat with you. During this time of transition that we're in, both as a nation with the coronavirus and at First Congregational Church, as we move from one settled minister to another, I thought it might be important to have a bit of time with you and just to explain a little bit more about what transitional ministry, or what we often refer to as interim ministry, is all about. Let me read you a passage from the Gospel of Luke. This has to do with the entrance onto the scene of John the Baptist. As it is written in the book of the words of Isaiah the prophet, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, "Prepare the way of the Lord. Make his paths straight. Every valley shall be filled, and every mountain and hill shall be brought low. And the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough ways shall be made smooth, and all flesh shall see the salvation of God." I like that passage a lot when it comes to discussing interim ministry or transitional ministry. The reason I like that is because it's talking about this time of preparation, this period in which we are looking ahead at another who is to come. Interim ministry results when a pastor decides to retire, who dies, who gets sick, who's asked to leave, who finds another position and moves on. Whatever the circumstances, the minister who's been serving a church decides to leave. And there is this process that is put into place where the church goes through a period of time not only looking for the next settled minister, but hopefully uses the time to take a look at themselves and explore issues in the church to become a better church so that they prepare themselves when the new settled minister comes. I would say this to you. If you are a church that has a minister who is leaving or who has been asked to leave, and that minister has not been there very long at all, say a year or two, an interim may not necessarily be needed if there's time to have a search committee and go find the new settled minister. But for those churches, like the situation that I'm in at First Congregational Church, where there's been a long-standing tenure, the pastor that I'm replacing is a very beloved, very talented minister who was there for 30 years. For those of you who know who I'm speaking about, you understand the depth of the roots that go deep into the soil and the foundation of the church. And we understand that that takes some time. I mean, I think intuitively you would know, you wouldn't want to just bring another settled minister in right away. The roots go too deep. They're too emotionally laden, and there's too much risk involved. Let me give you an example. For the situation that I'm in right now, with a tenure of 30 years, there is a very deeply set pattern of how church goes. Okay, and it works. It works very well for people. The problem is there are no two ministers alike. And in a situation where there's a minister who is very beloved, imagine bringing a new settled minister into that without the advantage of having a period of insulation or time. Everything would get compared to the former settled minister. The new minister would come in, would establish him or herself, would have a certain style, leadership style, ways of doing things, Well, but that's not how XYZ did it, or XYZ would have done it this way, would have done it differently, or we always did it that way. Those are usually indications of grief, that those kinds of ways of holding on to the former are ways of struggle, of saying goodbye. That's okay, and that time needs to be given the liberty to take place. It's just that you wouldn't want to bring a new settled minister in on top of that right away. Hence, the advantage of having an interim minister, kind of like an insulation period of time. So you know the interim's going to be there for a short while. The interim comes in. The interim knows that he or she's going to be compared to the former all the time, and you learn not to take it personally. You learn to understand that these are expressions of grief and sorrow, of sadness and loss. And it's important that people be able to express those thoughts and those feelings. What you find, and we found that at First Congregational, that over time, less and less of those comparisons get made. That's an important thing. If a minister has been involved in misconduct, that usually takes a period of time for people to work through their sense of betrayal, anger, those kinds of feelings. A minister that dies certainly brings a whole different set of dynamics to play. So it just offers the institution, the church, the community, it offers a time to work through whatever feelings of anger, grief, sadness, distraught, betrayal, whatever those feelings are. It gives us a chance to talk about that, address it in different ways, and work that through, so that, like with John the Baptist, the way is prepared and the new settled minister comes in without all the other baggage. Another important role for the interim minister is to help the church take a look at itself. Instead of just what we need to do is go out and find our new next minister, and it's all the focus on him or her. It gives the chance and opportunity to talk about the church's history, the high spots, the low spots, the good times, the bad times, the times when we got lost, the times when we were right in sync with God's will for our church. Those critical moments in a church's history are really important to review, to celebrate, and to remember. It also gives us a chance to take a look at how power is shared, how decisions get made in the church, and how leadership is established. In some churches, and you probably know of churches like this, the same group of people have been in charge and in power forever. No decisions get made without running it through those people, whether they are in the positions of leadership or not. It's important that we share leadership. As Paul said, we're all various parts of the body, and the eye can't be the foot, the elbow can't be the mouth, and we understand that imagery and how critical it is that we all find our gifts to offer and share in the life of the church in that way. What's really important in my work is to help churches find their core values and to articulate them. What are we known for? What do we admire about who we are as a church? What do we hold on to and celebrate? Could be our sense about missions and how important it is to care for the poor of the world. Maybe it's our music program. Maybe it's education, that we really want to have a high degree of scholarship in helping people to understand Christian life and leadership, our tradition, and our calling. In understanding what those core values are, we know what we really want to retain, what we want to hold on to. Because if we ever lost it, we wouldn't be who we are. So it's important to be able to state that and to claim that as our own. We do this, and we have done this at First Congregational through what we've entitled our Holy Conversations. We had a series of 3 conversations in which we talked about the life of our church, its history, our core values, where we want to go, and what we want in terms of that person who is hopefully going to lead us someday. But if we don't know who we are first, how do we ever expect somebody to lead us? I mean, we don't really want to go out and hire somebody, do we, to do it all? We're the church. We need somebody walking beside us, maybe a step in front of us, teaching us about discipleship and what it means to be followers of Jesus' way, to what it means to be a Christian, and to be members of First Congregational Church. We can best know who it is we need to bring on board with us once we've clearly understood who we are and who we want to serve and where we want to go. As I said, no 2 ministers are ever the same. Oftentimes, when there's been a long-term tenure, churches want to go out and find somebody as close to that minister as possible. They want to have a clone, and they want that person to do exactly the same kinds of programs and styles and liturgies and things that have been known. And sometimes that becomes part of our core values, and we want to retain that. The problem is that no 2 people are ever the same. The new person that we bring on, our new settled minister, is going to have a personality of her own. He's going to have a style of doing church that is uniquely fitted to who he is and how he understands the Christian way of life. Liturgy, style, dress, music, education, ways of being the church can all be wonderful ways, even if they're not always the same. Having an opportunity to be with an interim, say for a year or so, gives us a good opportunity to try new things. We say in the United Church of Christ that God is still listening, still guiding, still revealing to us. God is still speaking, maybe even in new, unexpected, and surprising ways. The idea is that when our new settled minister comes, we want to have cleared the decks emotionally. We want to have a good sense of who we are, what our calling is, and who we're called to serve. The more we do that, the better the chances of success. Some churches, I'm sorry to say, will try to just replicate who they've had in the past, and that often doesn't work really well. Doesn't mean that we can't hold to core values, doesn't mean that we can't hold to beloved certain services, styles, traditions. We'll do that. But it's important to stay open to the leading of God's Spirit, to understand how God is still speaking to us, and to find new and fresh ways to be the church in our community. That's what interim ministry is about. For me, it's a high privilege. I absolutely love doing this work. I love people. I love finding out how churches do church differently, and every church is different, even within the same denomination. because we're all God's children and we're all unique. So as we go through this period of time, feel free to express the things that you like and don't like. I'm not going to take it personally. It's just the nature of the work, and it is indeed a very high privilege, preparing the way for the one who is yet to come. May God bless you, and may God bless First Congregational Church of Port Washington.